Well, it's 1 o'clock.
I know that Sonia
here?
messaged me that she would not be able to make it.
Sonia.
Sorry.
I'm here.
Sonia is here. I lied. I'm a very big liar.
Nancy.
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 Thank you. Sorry.
Mhm. And I know Vanessa was not going to be here. Or is she just e-content? I can't remember.
Vanessa's e-content.
Okay. So do we have a quorum here?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if we have a quorum, then let's call this meeting to order. Everyone should have received the agenda and minutes in your email. Need to first off approve the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? I know in the email, Keith, you mentioned that Jake would be here to address folks as part of the Indiana State Library report. So it's not really an addition to the agenda, but that's part of the State Library report, if anyone was wondering. If there are no other additions or corrections to the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll motion.
Was that Scott?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Can we have a second on the agenda?
Second, this is Sonia.
Sonia for a second. All those in favor say aye or raise a
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, sounds like that motion carried. Also attached to that document are the minutes from the December 14th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections for the minutes?
It was gonna be okay. This is Carter should take long anyway.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay, that was Janet from Shelby County. A motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Scott. All those in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, sounds like that motion has carried. Okay, so that takes us down to the Indiana State Library report. So Keith, I'll turn that over to you.
Awesome. All right. And I will turn around and play hot potato with this. Those of you who are with us today are probably aware that Evergreen, Indiana had experienced a lot of server instability issues over the past few weeks here. That was recently resolved last week. And Jake Spear, the state librarian, has asked to be able to address the executive committee and any participants here in the audience. Unless you have anything else to add, Krista, I will turn the spotlight over to him and he can say his piece, and then we can, if there's any, you're welcome to decide the format in which any questions or discussion happen from there.
Okay, well, let's let Jake speak and then we'll take questions after that. Okay.
Thanks, Krista. Thanks, Keith. So we're taking this really, really seriously, and it's really a big issue, and we need to fix this and not just resolve this, but holistically think about how do we prevent things like this happening in the future. And so we are really examining everything and talking things through, and we are looking at making changes, and we will bring this to the EC as we go along. But first off, just to summarize what happened, and this is because in the end, we ended up going to Equinox to help resolve this issue. Emerald and our staff was unable to resolve this, and so Equinox was able to fix it. So on January 17th in the afternoon, someone did a search on Evergreen and then took the results. Doesn't matter what search it was, but they copied all the results and searched 9 times. They put it in again and again and again. And so that search started ricocheting around in the server, against the server. And our staff attempted to fix it and ran a script to be able to close the database connections, and that did not resolve it. And so all of you are aware, from January 18th to the 27th, it was limping along. It was working, but it wasn't at full function. And then on January 28th, after consulting with Evergreen and also our own staff looking at it, we attempted to address the database load issues by changing the server. And the way we attempted to do the server, there was some errors in that. We were working with Emerald on that, and it didn't go well. And so on January 31st, we contacted Equinox because Emerald and our staff weren't able to fix this. Equinox was able to fix it within hours on the 31st, and it's back up and running. Again, this is not the way we should be able to can function serving 125 plus libraries. It has to be fixed. It has to be stable. All your staff have to be able to do the work that they need to do. Otherwise, it's just not a tenable situation. And we completely understand that, and we're going to fix it. What I anticipate us doing is we're going to look at changing the way that Evergreen is supported technically. We are going to look at requesting some support contract from a third party and examine that, and also increase the amount of training that our staff have around this. But the big thing for me is to prevent this is, we have staff and they are trained and they are experienced, but we have a support contract to prevent things that happened here where there was an issue, and things happen all the time. I mean, the most seasoned technical person has issues or something they overlook or have an issue. And what happened in this case is that even our support was unable to resolve that. So we had 2 different issues. We had our own issue, and then our support contract, which we pay for. Neither was able to resolve it. And so I have concerns that maybe our support contract or our support service is not in the right place. But we are going to look at that and consider other options, because there are other options out there in addition to Emerald, of course. And so that's something we're looking at. And again, we're looking at the training for that. In the meantime, we are not going to undertake in the next month or 2, we're not going to do any, system upgrade or anything like that, but Evergreen's a dynamic database, and we have to always be doing things too. We have to do updates, we have to do patches, we have to do server upgrades, things like that. And so it's going to be top priority to examine the way that the Evergreen is supported and make changes in a really timely fashion, and make sure that it is supported and that this similar thing does not happen going forward. On the slightly lighter side, it reminded me, for some of you that have been around for a long time, when this first came up in 08 and then 09, it used to yo-yo up and down, and it brought back a lot of bad memories and bad feelings from that. And at one point, I think Evergreen was completely dark for a week plus. And so we can't go back to that. Even the reduced capacity that we had for 2+ weeks was not acceptable. We need to work on stabilizing it and make sure that doesn't happen again. And I think we have the knowledge and the resources to take that and prevent it from happening again. So yeah, we are working through that. It's very serious. We're going to resolve it, and we're all, MIS, Ruth, Keith, Stephanie, we're all, Lynn, we're all working on this, and we're going to resolve it. So, but again, what happened was that on 17th And to me, that should not have caused that. But on the 17th, someone did a search 9 times that was probably a very large text file, and that server had issues, and it kind of went out from that, radiated out from that. But that should not cause that going forward. And so if it does, we should be able to resolve that much more quickly than we did. And we are going to work to ensure that it does going forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions. But again, I think this is kind of the beginning of the process. We have already started working on it. We've been working on this since we've got it back up, and we're in the midst of rethinking how we do this.
Well, thank you, Jake. Are there any questions for Jake? Maybe we should put them in the chat so we can take things in an orderly manner. Or comments?
And again, I will come back at the next meeting and report again where we are at that point, or we'll send emails. But we're kind of in information gathering right now. I mean, we have gathered pretty much, we know everything, but next step is looking at what our options would be as far as additional support from a third party. And so we're working on that.
Okay, all we have is the one thing in the chat says, thanks, Jake, for looking into this. So are there any questions for Jake or comments? Otherwise, we'll let him off the hook.
No, we're just getting started. So, but I appreciate the time, Krista. But yeah, we got it to be better. We understand that.
And I do have a comment. This is specifically for Courtney, but anybody else, that this is being recorded and will be available on the Evergreen Indiana YouTube channel in case you need to refer people to Jake's comments after the fact, people who aren't here.
Yeah. And in the chat, Sarah asked, so would you say at this time, you know what went wrong and you're working a plan to figure it out, how to prevent it from recurring? And Jake responded yes to that. So, and
I'll just add that, I think it's complicated, but her sentiment's exactly right. What Sarah said, the server should not have happened. I think it's partly the age and condition of the server. And then also secondarily, the response to it should have been much quicker and cleaner than it was. So it was almost like a twofold issue there. So, but yes, we're working to resolve both.
Any other questions for Jake while we have him here?
And I'll stay on so if there's anything that comes up. So. All
right. Well, thank you for the update, Jake. I think at least I can speak for a lot of folks who's worked in IT. I know what an awful feeling it is to have things, going down all around you and the flames rising. So I appreciate the response and the effort, and I hope we can get a solution that keeps us good and stable in the future. So, but thank you for your comments, Jake.
Thank you for the time.
Okay. All right, Keith, it's back to you then for some annual report statistics.
All right, click back anywhere without advancing the slide. Thanks again, Jake. Thanks, everybody. It has been a very exciting January. I sent out annual report statistics to library directors to the most up-to-date email address I had. Sometime vaguely around the end of January, I want to say it was Thursday the 27th, but all the days of January have kind of melted together for me like the giant ice golem ice cube in the bottom of an ice maker. So all directors should have received their annual report statistics. I've gotten at least one email, literally about 2 minutes before the meeting started, saying, hey, I didn't get these statistics. So if you do hear from any constituent libraries, about their annual report statistics. They should have those by now. And if not, please have them get in touch with me and I'll make sure that they get a copy of those. Similarly, if you look at any of the statistics and anything looks off, please let me know. And I will go back and run through. And if there's any corrections that need to be made, I will send those out. But otherwise, thanks everybody for your patience for January, especially with the annual report statistics took a little longer than anticipated. It is unless you have seen the massive pile of spaghetti that constitutes this, I cannot even begin to explain it. So I'm glad that we were able to get those out before the end of February, so you can all, or sorry, before the end of January, so you can all get those into the hands of your board members and get those signed and taken care of here. Next thing that I've got to report on, Evergreen Committee nominations are coming up here. We are in that season. I know it just feels like we just finished filling all the slots on the committees, and then we're right back to looking for more participants, new blood, any returning members that would be interested. So if you have anybody that you would like me to reach out to, or you know someone that would be a good fit for the patron services, e-content, cataloging committees, or executive committee, I will be happy to reach out and say all the nice things here. Push all the perks of being in the room where it happens, so to speak. Usually the committee, the actual voting itself, I believe last year we did it at the end of March, I want to say. So usually usually the slate of candidates is presented at the end of March at the next
Annual meeting.
Thank you. And then the votes occur shortly after that. In May is when the actual voting will take place. But I will very soon begin opening the door for any nominations, recommendations, and so forth. And there will be a form that will let folks do that. I think that is all that I have to report on. Ruth, do you have anything? Lynn, you have anything you want to add here?
Just that I didn't actually I looked at the slides. I'm not sure completely about the agenda, but in mentioning the annual meeting, it traditionally would be falling before the next EC meeting, which will be in April. So that may be something that needs to either be established via an email vote or something like that, unless it's on the agenda to set that date.
For the annual meeting?
Uh-huh.
Gotcha, yes.
And I apologize for not saying that. It had been falling in line with the Evergreen, Indiana annual conference, which of course is still weird. So it will probably need to be separate again. Well, it will need to be separate again since there's not going to be an annual conference in March. So just a heads up on that. A late heads up, my bad.
Yeah, that is an annual meeting date is not on today's agenda. Is that something that we can add later on? We can discuss that.
Yeah, I think we could probably add that on at some point.
Okay.
We probably should set that date, or at least be firmly thinking of it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. The next slide here, we can go back to happy stats that I can point to here. The fine-free and auto renewals counts have not changed since our meeting in December here. I think Newburgh Chandler Public Library went live. I think they went fines free, the most recent one. I think we had included them in the last meeting in one of the Pine Tree libraries because they submitted their request prior to the executive committee meeting, but their actual go live date was, I believe, January 3rd. The cool thing that we get to point out is the cover image uploader has been used to upload 1,167 images since it went live with our upgrade in November. So that is 1,167 images that Bob Jackson has not had to process for everyone. So big thanks to Ruth for getting the training out there. Big thanks to everybody in the cataloging committees for helping steer things and set some.
And big thanks to Bob Jackson, always. Anytime we can thank Bob Jackson.
Anytime. And big thanks to everyone who took the training and learned how to do that. It is a very cool feature that we're very excited that other consortia will get to use that thanks to the development money that the Evergreen Indiana committed to make that happen. Okay, that's all I have for the State Library report.
Awesome. So we have a fiscal report next.
Let's see. Somewhere. Did I skip past that slide?
Mhm.
What have I got in my pocket? We'll just skip. Okay, yes, I have the agenda is correct. I have the slides in the wrong order. Apologies. Okay. Is everyone able to see the fiscal overview here? With the caveat
Not
that it
very
probably
well.
needs to be enlarged. Yep.
It's very small.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd probably control plus that twice.
Sorry, Chrome is not being terribly responsive right now. There it goes. Okay. Very
Better.
good. Okay. So our projected income for this year is $387,953 based on membership dues. We've received, I had a percentage, we've received a lot of, most of the membership payments have already come in here. Still waiting on a few there. Big expenses to point out, of course, we did out of our support services and accessory line here, the past couple of weeks have been pretty expensive in terms of the support that we requested. So like Jake mentioned, hopefully once we have a regular agreement in place with a different vendor, that will cut down on the hourly costs for resolving any issues that we need to contact them for, rather than having to go to with an emergency approach, which if you've ever had to call a plumber in the middle of the night, is always more expensive. Otherwise, I think that's all that I would point out about the recent expenditures here. Our annual balance for this year still $314,596 unspent yet. Another person here. Okay. Okay. That's all I have for the fiscal report. Does anybody have any questions? Discussion? Keeping an eye on chat over here as well, so I don't miss anything.
Anybody have any questions? I think I'm good. Nope. All right. Well, if no one has any questions, I guess we'll move on to subcommittee reports. Cataloging. Is there anyone here from the cataloging committee?
thought I saw Monica in here, but
Yes, I'm here. Unfortunately, we haven't met since the last executive committee meeting because we only meet quarterly. So nothing, we don't really have any updates for this meeting. I will say that Ruth recently discovered, which some of us probably been aware of for a while, that our cataloging contacts list is somewhat outdated. So if you wanted to remind your catalogers at your local libraries to check that and update the state library with your catalogers' contact information, that would be fantastic. Ruth, was there, or Keith, was there anything else you think that, like I said, since we haven't met, is there anything else we should discuss?
sorry, I've been looking over the agenda. Looks like I've omitted a thing from the a training report from the agenda, which explains why I skipped over that line. I do not have anything cataloging committee wise. Like Monica said, we haven't met since can't remember if it was, I think it was early December. I think it was right before the last executive committee meeting. So the next cataloging committee meeting will be next month in a few weeks here on March 3rd at 10 a.m.
And related to what Monica said about the cataloging contact updates, there have been 26 of them so far. I haven't gotten through all of them yet to get those updates, but I'm going to go ahead and send the link to that, or give you the link to that form in chat.
That's fantastic, Ruth. I didn't realize you'd had that much feedback.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think that people might be talking about it like outside of the catalog interest group, because there were people who weren't there that have also submitted things. And then I'll also provide the list if I can get to that real quickly. To the catalog contacts list. There we go. So if there are people in here who want to refer to that and see if there is something that needs to be updated, that would be great. Let me get the right window. And that is that Google Sheet also links through the website under cataloging support list. So if you want to take a look at the entries for your library, maybe, or if you're somebody that talks to libraries, refer them to that to make sure that those are up to date as well.
Thank you. Also, Ruth, I didn't look at the agenda very closely. Did you need or want to talk about the parts?
I would be glad to. Yeah. So it's not on the agenda, but it would be appropriate in here.
It was I think in the minutes from the last meeting, which is what reminded me.
So the parts project is something that I had been working on my own for a while, which because I can work across multiple libraries at once, and it was addressing those items that have circulation modifiers for media. So initially it was transiting media, and then I realized it needed to be broader than that. So DVDs, Blu-rays, those types of things that could transit or not transit depending on the circulation modifier. But if one holding that is attached to a record has parts assigned to it, then all of the holdings that are on that record need to have parts, because it affects the way that holds can be placed for, and we want that to be unambiguous for our users. So there were hundreds of thousands of these holdings records that needed to be addressed. It kind of narrowed that pool down to, at this point, about 90,000. But then also have had some very experienced catalogers throughout the consortium in terms of both their cataloging expertise as well as their understanding of policy and how the workflows go together, have agreed to essentially, and I called it this, be deputized. And what that means is they have expanded working locations so that they can work in a manner similar to me, so that if they are looking at a record where they see that parts need to be assigned and they can easily tell what those parts need to be, they can apply them throughout. So there are 2 so far who have begun that, and 2 more that I need to have further conversations with about how that works. It's a very small group, but it multiplies the effort. And because they are so experienced with this and competent in it, and also careful because of lots of reasons, I have a lot of trust in that. And also it's an easy thing to stay on top of. So we hope to, each time a holding or a catalog record has all of the holdings records associated with it updated, it's a good sense. For me, it's a large sense of satisfaction, because I know if somebody goes to place a hold on that record, they're going to have an experience that isn't confusing. So it's kind of a somewhat instant gratification. So if I do like 25 of them in the course of 15, 20 minutes, it's that much more times 25. So it's a bit of an adrenaline rush for me, makes me feel good. Anyway, so thank you to those people who have been deputized. It's an ongoing, continual thing. And they have also been given the flexibility to determine how they want to approach that. And I believe that it's mostly been that they look at their own catalog records, and then if there are, or their own holdings, and then if there are other holdings records associated with them from other libraries, then they can update the whole thing. And then that has this kind of multiplied effect throughout the entirety of the catalog. So I'm excited about it. And if there are other people that are interested in that, we could have further conversation. But I would encourage those interested parties to come to cataloging committee meeting prior to that, so we can have more conversation about it before we take the next step. Is that good, Monica?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would add that for allowing a few select catalogers to edit the parts and correct the parts is, in addition to being helpful to patrons, it's probably more efficient, because in the past, when a cataloger notices that it needs it, you either ignore it, which doesn't fix the problem, or you send an email to the cataloging committee, the cataloging list, which, one, takes a few more minutes than editing the parts, and 2, some of libraries, especially the small ones, don't have the time or effort to deal with it.
Yeah.
So it's a quicker and easier fix for the cataloger to be able to do it themselves.
And you know that it's fixed, as opposed to hoping once you send that email out there into the wild, it may or may not be.
Yeah.
So.
So that's all the cataloging committee has. Thank you, Ruth.
You're welcome.
Krista, the training report, looking back at previous agendas, the training report is usually part of the state library report. Would you like us to go back to the training report, or would you like us to finish the committee reports first?
Why don't we backtrack to the training report and knock that out first?
Okay, that will give Ruth more opportunity to speak here, which I know is exactly what you wanted.
Okay.
Super excited.
I know. Okay. training report. There you go.
Okay, there's been a lot. There's always seems to be a lot. I'm working on updating training manuals. Some of the updates will go out to committee to help with that, specifically for circulation and cataloging, but I'm trying to get the lion's share of like screenshots and new features ready for them so that it's, I know it, doing this kind of committee work on top of your library work can be a lot. And so the more that it can be kind of mitigated before committee members get in there, the better. So, and in most cases, it's just a matter of updating screenshots to reflect new interfaces. In some cases, those interfaces, new interfaces, do represent some new workflows. And so that also has to be addressed. So that's kind of an ongoing thing. The other thing that I have been working on most feverishly recently is a new acquisitions training manual. And that will be launching on February the 16th. It would be disingenuous to not say that it is in preparation for Porter County, who will be coming on to Evergreen, Indiana, using acquisitions and wanting to use the entirety of the module, which is essentially another ILS. It's of course in Evergreen, but it has so many far-reaching implications into other things, whether it be circulation or cataloging or administration. All of those things will, so having that ready, and it should be ready to launch by next Friday. And by launch, I mean it will be linked on the website, and maybe there will be an email that goes out with that, because then there will be acquisitions training for Porter County on Friday. So I'm going to go down this list, skip everything for just a hot second, and say then there will be training for Evergreen, Indiana member libraries more broadly in April. So kind of going to use Porter County as the guinea pig for that training, and then have it dialed in a little bit better for the general membership in April. Okay, now going back to the Porter County migration training schedule, I mentioned that they'll be doing acquisitions training on Friday the 18th, and they are going to be doing cataloging training on February the 17th. Those are going to kind of be commingled because acquisitions, if you're using it, does have its fingers pretty tightly into cataloging. So we're going to see how that works. I have recently been getting a lot of emails from libraries where I'm jumping on to the next point, about their catalogers leaving, retiring, etc., and getting their new people trained. And in a lot of cases, they're asking to have Cat 1 status applied pretty quickly when they have actually never cataloged at all. And Evergreen, Indiana traditionally has provided training on the use of the ILS to do cataloging, but not the concepts of cataloging, not like something that you would get from either the Ivy Tech library course certification that they had, or an MLS program or anything like that. So one of the things I wanted to either remind you if you knew about it, or let you know about it if you didn't, is that the Idaho Commission for Libraries has had a long-standing basic library education series called ABLE. I didn't provide a link here, but if, well, I actually have a link that I have this open, and I will provide a link to you right now in chat. This is a great tool for new cataloging staff or people interested in becoming cataloging staff to go to the technical services sequence and go through that. It is eligible for LEUs, and you can look on the continuing ed website for how to document recorded or archived webinar content, which is what you would use that policy for the LEUs. And I know Courtney is in here, so she has something to add to that. Please jump in, and I'm gonna, let me see here. I think you have the ability to talk anyway, so jump in if you want to. And then after somebody who has not cataloged before, doesn't have the training for it, then if they begin the Evergreen Indiana training, starting with the basic, and then of course going into advanced if that's appropriate, between a Cat 2 or a Cat 1, that will provide them with a foundation, or at least a basic foundation for cataloging. So I highly recommend that that be where you start. It is something that is done on their own time frame. I think that the entirety of the technical services looks like it's like 7.5 hours, contact hours. Of course, that's going to be dependent on how they go through that. There's some other tools in there as well, collection development or public service, which is great if you don't want to, even if you had the money to spend, I would recommend this, and it's free. And then you can look at some more advanced things, either through MCLS. I left this in here that we do provide some scholarship opportunities, and you can email either Keith or I about that if you have someone that has a Cat 1, but is maybe looking at some of those MCLS cataloging courses for either continuing or expanded education as far as that goes. Let's see, just a reminder about the Evergreen Indiana Training YouTube channel, which has a lot of stuff there. If you can go on to the next slide, please, Keith. So then the other thing that has been an ongoing conversation during these meetings is the local administration certification that will be launching this year. A few things to keep in mind: that when this launches, which the launch date will be announced first of all, but it will fall towards the end of April, that there will be no shared or generic local admin accounts, so that there are individual accounts for each person that is logging in with that permission level, and that their contact information is documented in their staff account, so we know who to contact if there is an issue. I will be doing a final audit and account cleanup, which means that I will be contacting people in the library if I have questions about accounts that exist for that library. That will happen starting this week and finishing up prior to that launch. Then there will be the first annual refresher to accommodate the continuing ed requirement that was voted on and approved by the EC in May of 2022. And I'm thinking that there will probably be 2 of those offered throughout the year that will not be identical to one another, but will both qualify toward that annual recertification, which is similar to Cat 1 recertification, or I'm not sure that's the right word for it, but there's the annual continuing ed requirement. So that's it. Any questions about that before we go on to the next thing? So Keith, I'm going to give that one to you. That's Evergreen, Indiana, right there.
So yes, we are waiting to get some feedback from our vendor on the change holds type. It's been several months since I last reached out. When we last reached out, I want to say around October. We were told that it was about 90% of the way done, and then there has not been any updates since then. So that put that back on my radar. I may need to hit somebody with sticks until code falls out. Change.
And we can have a conversation about how to perhaps proceed with that, because it's been 2 years at least since they said that they could do a thing and have stalled at that 90%. And it's something that I, who am not in at a public service point, I run up against this actual thing where I'm like, man, it'd be great to be able to change that hold type. And so I can only imagine how many people would find usefulness from that in the actual libraries that are doing holds all the time. But we'll talk about it.
Okay, to go on to the next one here. Yep. Okay. ECDI updates.
We are in the bug fixing point of this project. This is the conversion of the acquisitions module from the old JavaScript language that it used to a newer one. And Sprint 4 is the biggest part of this project. We knew that it was going to be going in. There has been a lot of input and work done from both our development vendor, as well as other people in the Evergreen community for this specific project. We have gone through the testing, and now we are getting feedback on some of those things. I actually have about 15 tickets that I need to address this afternoon, which was out of, I believe, like 55 tickets. So we're in the home stretch for that. And I'm very proud of it. That's what I have to say about that. You can hit the next thing. This and the next one as well. So these two are in development right now, and I actually need to follow up on where they are in development, because I'd like to see them going into the next release of Evergreen if possible, which, and that being the next release of Evergreen, not necessarily for Evergreen, Indiana, although we may have an ability to port that in, but that's another conversation. For the latest version that we will get to eventually in Evergreen, Indiana. Okay, next. We do have that new chair and chair-elect, and we are working on the bylaws and the memorandum of understanding. We continue to work on the expanded data set, and I have a follow-up meeting with an individual who I will be working with on how to, from this, so we have a bunch of information that needs to go into the stock Evergreen. I don't want to get too far into that, but what we need is some little bits of software to actually move it into there. And so we are going to have some small development projects that come out of that, where somebody writes those small bits of software to actually install the data into the basic Evergreen. I don't think that disambiguated anything, but it's cool if you want to spend a lot of time talking about a lot of technical stuff. Go to the next one. and the next one as well. So we have two kind of API projects that we are talking about right now with ECDI. One of them has to do with digital materials or e-materials, and a way to search the catalogs of those other providers, and that would be like Overdrive or Hoopla, to search them from the Evergreen catalog without loading MARC records into the Evergreen catalog. So it would essentially be a search interface that connected with a different database than the one that we maintain with our bibliographic records. So that's one project. That's that OPAC integration with the e-materials. The other one, the RESTful API, has to do with third-party patron engagement services, things like Orange Boy and Patron Point and Communico and those kind of things, in a way so that we had a native API that we could just give them the ability to access the information they need in our database, but have it dialed in such a way that they didn't have full access to everything from everybody. So that is an ongoing and active conversation, not just in ECDI, but in the Evergreen development world as well. I don't think there's anything after that one, right? No. Cool, that's me, that's it.
Let's not do the fiscal report again. Krista had to step away for a minute here, so we will go back to the committee updates here. So the e-content committee, I know there are a couple folks from the e-content committee that were here. We met this morning at 10 a.m. A lot of what the e-content committee would be reporting on is already listed in the new business for this meeting. But if anybody from the e-content committee wants to speak up to kind of recap today's meeting, feel free. Otherwise, I'll be happy to do so. Just in time, Krista.
Okay, all right, I'm back.
Welcome back.
The window contractor showed up unexpectedly.
That's exciting.
So we're on the e-content committee. Do you want me to speak on that, since, you know, basically the two things, the two major points we talked about in e-content today, which we met, are things that are either on the agenda for later, the reference solutions versus A to Z databases quote, and just general discussion of the IDL. I don't think there was really anything else that we talked about. Was there, Keith, that you
Nothing
can recall?
beyond that of any particular.
Yeah.
Those were the two big things.
Yeah, so I think that's about it for e-content, and we'll hit those in new business and unfinished business.
Let's see, Patron Services Committee. The last Patron Services Committee meeting, like the cataloging committee, the Patron Services Committee meets quarterly, and so and we the committee voted to cancel their December meeting. So the most recent Patron Services Committee meeting was back in September, so there haven't been any developments since then. The next meeting will be next month, March 15th at 10 a.m. Certainly a lot of the Indiana Digital Library stuff will impact patron services, and so we'll talk about that here down the line. Otherwise, I think that's about it. Strategic Planning Committee, unless anyone wants to talk more about the
Yeah, I just had one quick thing in that I
Patron
think we could use, we ran out of steam a little bit in the end of the new year, and then we had problems, yada, yada. I think we could use more EC voices and participation on it. So if anyone is interested, even remotely, please email me, and I'd be happy to talk to you.
the Strategic Plan Committee.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right. Yes, we did put out the survey there that Lynn was able to put up on the web client, the Evergreen splash page for us, and that has dramatically boosted the number of responses we've got. So we're up to 169 responses. We took the poll down on the 15th of January, and with all the excitement that's going on, we haven't sat through and combed through and tabulated everything, but we were pretty excited to get that level of response compared to what we had previously. So it's pretty cool.
Okay.
Maybe
Sorry,
a good thing that the poll was up there before Evergreen started having its issues that may have tainted the responses somewhat.
All right, if that's all we got on strategic plan, I guess we're on to unfinished business, and most of that is dealing with the IDL. So Keith,
Yeah.
is that you again?
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll throw this up here. So on my next update email that's going out, there's a few. We've talked about a few things that are going to be on the next update email that I send out to the consortium. The cataloging contact update form is one of them, but one of the big things that I want to be able to highlight is that first off, I'm going to skip down toward the bottom here and talk about the listservs. Those listservs there are listservs now for the Indiana Digital Library that anyone is able to sign up for. So that is going forward going to be the primary way that information about the Indiana Digital Library Overdrive Consortium is disseminated to not just Evergreen Indiana members, but any library in the state that is part of that consortium. That's where news and updates will go out. Previously, a lot of that communication was done directly through the director's email, the Indiana director's contact list. So this will the listserv will just allow anybody who is interested to get a part of that, so there doesn't have to be so much information trickling from the top down, so to speak. There is also a listserv out there for the IDL content management team. Anybody that would like to serve on the content management team is either get in touch with me, or if you have Stephanie Murphy's email address, I'm sure she would be happy to have more members on the content management team. There is a listserv that they are also using to coordinate, but that is everyone that has expressed interest and a desire to be on the content management team has been added to that second content management listserv. We had the go live date originally scheduled for February 1st has now been pushed back to March 1st, which will give us some time to smooth out some things in advance of that 3/1 go live date. So far, the response from Evergreen Indiana libraries has been great. All but 3 Evergreen Indiana libraries have submitted their participation forms. And that includes, as part of this, 2 libraries that weren't previously offering Overdrive are now have begun offering it. So that's pretty exciting. We're looking forward to the new consortium being a good success. We are still waiting for the marketplace to finalize the setup for the accounts and to get the look and feel of the new consortium website setup. There are a couple of listservs now, or sorry, a couple of FAQs now that have been created. One of them that I've just got listed here as the older one that was published by Stephanie Murphy and reflects a lot of the policies that the libraries that are joining the consortium will be expected to adhere to. There is a newer FAQ that was put out just recently, created by Overdrive, that talks about some of the more technical aspects. And so those FAQs, I'll include both of those and the next consortium-wide update that goes out here. There are 2 upcoming trainings for the new Indiana Digital Library Consortium. The first one of those is a Zoom training on March 2nd, and that's with Overdrive. That's getting started with Marketplace. So if you are familiar with Marketplace already, it still may be helpful to attend that meeting just to get any follow-up emails that they send out. I don't anticipate there will be a lot of surprises if you've been purchasing a lot of stuff with Marketplace, but I'm definitely going to be there still. There is a content management team meeting that is scheduled for 2/22/22/22 at 2 o'clock. I can only imagine that was done on purpose to make the timing all match up there. But so that will be for anyone interested in joining the content management team. That meeting will be on February the 22nd. And I think that is all I have to say about the IDL movement here. You guys know about everything I do at this point. We did get confirmation that there are a few things that we do know what all is going to carry over. I don't think that's listed in the FAQ. I'm going to try and pull up here. We know that things like holds and holds we know are going to carry over. Checkouts are probably the big thing. So if patrons ask, will my current holds and checkouts be honored between, the switch between consortiums, the answer should be yes. A couple things won't move over. Recommendations and reading history won't come over. So those will not be there, but the number one thing I think is holds. I know we talked last time that a lot of patrons know where they are, like to the person, what place they are in line as far as where their item is. I anticipate that will kind of that'll probably look a little wonky when they move over, as the number of holds on copies will go up, but the number of available copies will go up as well. So until the consortium launches, we don't know what that will look like in terms of, will I be getting book X that I've already placed on hold faster after the update here, or the new consortium switch over.
It is important to say that it should be faster, because that's also part of the role of the content management team, is to address those high holds and to be very proactive about if there are large queues purchasing more.
Yep, absolutely.
To address that. So it may take a month or so to kind of have that even out and get people up to speed on it, but it should pretty quickly even out, and you should see those hold times drop, even if there are more holds on those records. So
yeah, and for clarification, yeah, that's what I meant when I said that when the switchover happens, there will be, if you were number 7 in line before, you may jump to number 20, but the number of copies will go up substantially as well, and that is exactly the purpose of the content management team, is to make sure that those high holds items are being addressed. And there's an overall very strong commitment to really knocking down those holds queue times. So I look forward to seeing that in action here. All right, that is all I have on this slide here.
Okay, are we on to new business then?
Can I ask a quick question about IDL before I move off, just in case? I'm not sure if anyone has an answer, but on the FAQ, the messaging, it was the second question on the FAQ, which shows a Chatham library that it's kind of like a manual redirect. if people are using a link, it looks like if they'll get to this page or using a bookmark link, which will then they can click to go to their content or the current one. Am I understanding that correctly? Keith, if you're talking, you're muted.
Oh, I'm mumbling to myself.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Once default setting.
So I know lots of our patrons have their Libby app on their phone or what have you.
Yeah, that there will be messaging in place that will direct people to there. It's I imagine that folks may have to add. It is yet unclear to me whether or not patrons will have to add a new library in the Libby app. I anticipate that they will. I don't think there's probably not a way to, because even now when you pull it up, if you pull up your Libby app, you choose which library you want to check out from.
Correct.
And if since the EIDC will no longer exist, it wouldn't make a lot of sense for patrons to hit that and then see stuff come up. But yeah, we will definitely have messaging that will direct patrons to go to the new collection there once we have those.
Yeah, my main concern was for frontline staff when people call and come in and say, what's going on with this?
So Scott, is your question about the messaging in the app, or is it about the actual web page that if perhaps your library has a link to the web page?
Well, it's kind of both, because we do have some patrons that read on their computer and access via our web page.
Because the FAQ question has to do with the web page.
Right. And then the second part of that question is for those of them with the app, will they have to, rather than go to, for instance, we were IDDC, they'll have to redirect to IDC.
Well, they're going to have to log out and they're going to have to log back in by selecting the IDL.
Yeah. And
so that is something that they definitely will have to do. In terms of like things that are linked on your website, there probably will not actually be a redirect site that we have heard of for if they go to, like, in our case, I know you're IDDC, but EIDC dot blah blah blah, that would not redirect to IDL dot blah blah blah. So as soon as we have that link to those websites, we'll shoot that out, or somebody will shoot that out so that you can update those links or be prepared to update those.
Okay. Thanks.
Any more questions about IDL? All righty, I think we're on to new business then. Sorry, I keep losing.
Me too.
Yes, we're on to new business. Porter County migration.
Yep, Porter County migration. Cool. That is the wrong and all that. Okay, so we have Porter County's migration. Porter County's data has been uploaded to the migration server. We met with them a little bit on the 17th to go over some, give them some guidance on how they can look at their data and go over it. They've already come back with a couple questions and some tweaks that we're working on. Mostly Lynn and Bob have been working on those things coming along. We are looking very good for that. Ruth touched a little bit on the upcoming training, specifically with acquisitions and cataloging, would be on the 17th and 18th of February here. This is just a listing of all the trainings that we have scheduled. 17th and 18th will be cataloging and acquisitions. February 28th, March 1st will be circulation on the 28th, and then holds and transits on the 1st. We'll do reports training on March the 14th, about a week before their go live. And then starting on the Friday, March 18th, which is the Friday before Porter County's go live, we are probably going to need that whole time between the 18th and 22nd to do a full cataloging freeze while we migrate Porter County's records over. And that will be something that will go out on the next update here, that just to keep so folks are apprised of that date. And then the 21st and 22nd will be the pre-go live and the go live dates. So if anybody wants to volunteer to be a part of the go live team, Porter County has they have 5 different locations, and we want to make sure that we have at least one person on hand at each location that can kind of act as a point person and relay messages here.
And ideally, we'll have a complete team of about 15 people.
Yeah.
So
I will definitely accept any volunteers or any recommendations.
And we do have some people that have volunteered. We also do have some people from the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office that will be participating. So that is not like, it's not all people necessarily that need to be either from this committee or from others. But if you're interested, definitely let us know. COVID has kind of stolen a little bit of the joy out of it. So we'll still have anxiety about all of that, but we'll hope to mitigate that as well.
In my mind's eye, everyone that's part of the go live team would all have walkie talkies and cool call signs, but I can't promise that.
We'll just like decorate cans and like pretend that we can talk. I don't know. Or bring cell phones. I guess that would be a modern solution.
I guess those work too.
It's also a fully modern library system, so they also have phones and other ways to communicate between the branches. But
wow.
Anyway, yeah.
All right. On to the library card definition, which was an email Keith sent out recently about people who want to design their own library cards.
Right. So this is something that came out of a discussion with Porter County. We were actually in the process of ordering some library cards for Porter County, and they were a little bit confused. Their expectation was that because Porter County would be an Evergreen library, then a Porter County library card would per force be a Evergreen Indiana library card, which tried to explain that is not how we have been. That is not how that has been interpreted in practice. So we've kind of talked about it in the office internally. We have currently Evergreen Indiana has the green and the blue cards that represent full access to the consortium and local access only, that are used as to distinguish. And libraries have gotten used to being able to look at a card and say, yep, that's an Evergreen card and it should have full access, or yes, that's an Evergreen card but should only have local access. But we've talked internally about what it would look like to allow libraries that wanted to be able to purchase and use their own cards, and how we could maintain the consistent branding and recognizability. And so there is a draft proposal that's been mailed out that would, I guess I will pop it up here. Hopefully that is sharing here. It outlines certain requirements that a library would need to employ if they were using their own card, so that it would still be easily recognizable. But mostly this is something that libraries have never had the chance to do themselves. So if we offer this, we want to make sure that it's pretty clear about what the expectations are, so that there's no confusion when you bring your when a patron shows up at your library's doorstep with a kind of a custom card. And so hopefully folks have had a chance to read this over here, and I'll stop talking in just a minute and allow for discussion and questions. But one thing I did want to point out is that for libraries that that wanted to continue to use their own library cards, Ruth has put together these stickers as a kind of a mock-up for what a library might be able to put on a library card to help distinguish a card between a full access card and a local access card. And so I think that's a pretty cool idea.
And I will say too, that the larger one is just so that you can read what the smaller one is.
Yes.
Because it is of course pretty small, but it has those necessary color cues that we've used previously. The other thing I will say is that back in the day when I was in a public library, this was a conversation that did come up on the executive committee, and the, I guess, kind of the de facto decision was that you have to use what we are accustomed to now, with the green or the blue bars, and it has to be that design. And I didn't really like that decision, but whatever, we're part of the consortium because I, of course, wanted for my library to have some custom thing. But the language was never updated in such a way to disambiguate that policy, so that when Porter County then read that, it was not explicit what an Evergreen, Indiana card actually means. And for them, it would have been, I think it was like a $13,000 bill that would either come to Evergreen, Indiana, because traditionally that has been something that we have provided for migrating or onboarding libraries, or it would go to them as an unexpected $13,000 bill or some kind of cost sharing, but nonetheless, that's still thousands of dollars that's either being shared or not. And so it came down to then a fiscal responsibility thing as well, in terms of both the consortium and Porter County, and then how that might look for individual libraries. Maybe this is a way to provide an opportunity for your communities to kind of be part of this and still be your distinct groups, organizational groups, happy families, such as it were.
Okay, so I'm looking at this at what the proposal is. And am I reading that right? That we're talking that the design would be only 1/2 inch? Because that's really small.
It could be bigger. I mean, it could definitely be bigger, but it could be no smaller than that.
Okay. Because I mean, 1/2 inch is, a dime is bigger than 1/2 inch.
And maybe it needs to be bigger than that. Maybe it needs to be like 7 millimeters or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, a dime is about 7 millimeters. So 6.5, 7. So I don't know. I think I don't mind people wanting to have a custom card. I remember when this came up with you, Ruth, and I think the big thing is it just has to be very clear whether or not this is an Evergreen card. Because if someone from Porter County shows up here, I don't want my staff having to argue with them saying, no, that's not an Evergreen card.
That's exactly the issue
it
that we
is,
were
so,
discussing. Mm-hmm. And for them at this point, and there is in here, I believe, I'm trying to scroll on a screen, for onboarding libraries, that they could apply a sticker that we did provide them with a sticker until they were to come to whatever natural cycle that they either designed new cards or they ordered. Because the design that we have now would also remain. Nobody would have to like redesign cards or
Mhm.
So I didn't get this email, so I'm kind of just trying to read whatever. So if you're a new library, do you still get these free, or is that in there? Like I said, I didn't get it.
I don't know that the free cards has really ever been a policy thing. It's kind of been an understanding
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
and which is, I mean, that's another kind of problematic thing that probably does need to be addressed. What does a library that is onboarding actually, should they expect when they are onboarding?
And I looked through the bylaws and the policies regarding this to see whether there was anything in there, and there is nothing in there that officially states that Evergreen, Indiana, will supply or purchase the library cards. I think it's just something that we have just done as a matter of course. Which, if you're migrating a library that's got, 2,000 library cards, it's one thing, but when you've got 130,000 cards,
Mhm.
a service population of 130,000 with 50,000 cards, the cost ramps up pretty quick.
And it's
Right.
worth noting that these initial libraries that came on to Evergreen, Indiana, that was all part of an LSTA grant cycle. And so that the cards and everything, if anybody had to rebarcode, that went into that LSTA. And so there was money there to pay for that specifically. Or not specifically, but you can be flexible with your LSTA grant funds. So, but now there is still some LSTA funding, but it is being utilized a little bit differently. And is it something that, because it was never put into the policy, it was never put into the bylaws, or even the onboarding documentation, I think that probably does need to be revisited. So again, so that people know exactly what to expect. And we can accommodate these larger libraries where, if that is an output of money by anybody, whether it's Evergreen, Indiana, or them, that they can have some flexibility in how they approach these thousands of dollars.
Just speaking, all right, from my own standpoint, like when we came into Evergreen, we would have had to have had all new library cards because our old library cards didn't meet the minimum number of characters on the barcodes. And for us, that would have been, we're talking, I think at the time, 20 or 30,000 users. I kind of like the idea of being able to have a custom card. I think it would be, I'm not sure what reason we would use it, but, maybe if we were doing a capital campaign and want to give people something special for, contributing, and they had a special design or something. I don't have a problem with the proposed draft guidelines, but I do think that 1/2 inch is too small. I think I'm sitting here with the library card and coins in front of me, just kind of looking how they go. So something that's roughly a quarter size
would that fit on the key fob? That's the question.
It would not fit on the key fob. That's the only thing. But the dime size one, the 1/2 inch one, it would be fine on a key fob. But I just think on the larger cards, it needs to be a larger.
Okay.
So maybe, I don't know if we can do 1/2 inch for key fobs, or 1 inch for wallet cards or not. That would be my only concern. I'm just afraid something that's just a dime size element.
We could do like 8 millimeters, 8 or.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, not 8 millimeters, 18 millimeters.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here with coins and a ruler. So yeah.
Or 15 millimeters.
15 millimeters is about a quarter size. So, again, maybe 15 millimeters on the wallet size card. And, I don't have a problem with the 1/2 inch for the smaller cards, which would be about, wait a minute now.
Yeah, I was going to say a quarter is probably closer to.
Quarter's like 25 millimeters.
Right.
And a dime is like 15. 17, something like that. So that would be my only concern. I just really feel like that 1/2 inch may be too small.
Okay.
It would just get lost in the
Bump that up.
design.
That's pretty easy peasy.
Yeah. Anyone
And-
else have any thoughts on this?
Is Porter happy with the sticker idea, or do they envision a,
There's only so much that we can accommodate them before we start
okay.
like,
I
yeah.
was just wondering
I
before. we
mean,
get too
there are
far down the road.
125 libraries at this point that have made vast accommodations, and this is a pretty significant one.
Yeah.
Porter County's ultimate desire, they are looking at getting new library cards as part of a branding campaign that they were doing anyway. They haven't given a date for when they would get those, but it would not be in time for their go.
When
live.
when I originally heard about this, I never had a lot of time to think about it. I was thinking, well, it would be neat if you could have a front that was branded by your home library and a rear that was branded by the Evergreen system. That's going to cost a lot of money. And, for the libraries that don't want to spend that, could they just keep the blue and the green cards?
Yes.
And be happy. And if you want to, maybe the vendor we contract with could throw up some prices for other libraries who want to go down that road, and if they want to spend the money.
Monica, that was something that we have definitely talked about internally. Monica asked, does it matter that the app displays the patron barcode without indicating blue, green, Porter County, et cetera? That is something we definitely brought up, that we've been pretty, I'm going to say legalistic about the blue cards and the green cards, but now we also have the app that has none of that stuff in there. It just brings up the actual barcode. And so in light of that, can we now become a little bit more flexible? We have the need to be flexible. We're already being more flexible over here. So can we now be more flexible in the application of this policy? But then can we also go back to this policy and make it a little bit more explicit and meaningful so that we don't have to, revisit the conversation every time somebody finds a loophole, address the loopholes.
I'm in favor of it. I think the 1/2 inch is as big as I would like to see it. I think the ability to customize and make a cool card is kind of limited if half the card has to
Yeah.
Okay.
be the Evergreen logo. But I mean, like Scott said, you could put stuff on the back too. Could that logo be, if the library wants to pay for new cards, can they put the Evergreen logo on the back as long as it's printed on there somewhere clearly and is the agreed upon size? Does it have to be front? Can it be back?
I don't think it matters if it's front or back.
Okay.
It would need to be that voted on graphic. I know that traditionally the back has been just black and white because it's cheaper, but I mean, that's kind of up to you. It still need to include that information. And I guess I need to actually look at Evergreen card because I think that refers to the consortium, but
Usually has
I'm
the
looking
library's address on there. Yep.
Yeah, I'm looking at mine right now. So the back basically has the library's name and contact information. It has the paragraph about responsible for presenting this card when checking out, and it's non-transferable, and a fee is charged for replacement card. So all the legalese is on the back.
yeah. And so it would still need to have that legalese because that's a standard thing. But
Yeah.
but as far as the rest of it, it could really be whatever.
Yeah, like I said, to me, as long as it's just very clear that it's an Evergreen card, and I just don't want my staff having to second guess. Because again, if we all start doing something different, so I don't know if we want to say the placement should always be in the same. I don't know. I just want it to be very clear to frontline staff that yes, this is an Evergreen card, and I can just scan it and go from here. So.
Can we?
I have to agree. This is Jennifer. I think it has to be consistent. If it's not consistent, I think it's not even worth worrying about.
Consistent
That's
in
just
what
my
manner,
opinion.
though?
Either the placement needs to be the same, the size needs to be the same,
Yeah.
something needs to be the same so that on a quick glance, we can tell who,
But the
that this
logo
is.
itself does constitute
Yeah.
being the same, does it not?
Yeah,
I
but if
agree, but
it's,
the placement needs to be the same. If half of them have it on the front and half of them have it on the back, I don't know. I'm just a consistency kind of person. So this is driving me a little crazy, but I get the need to be on brand and to be creative and flexible. But I think you are going to create more problems for frontline staff. And I think we got to keep those people in mind.
So should we say that it has to be on the front?
I think so.
I don't care. I just think it
I
has to
don't
be
care.
consistent.
Yeah. So I think we need to pick someplace. Either it has to be on the front or something, just so that frontline staff know what they're doing.
I wouldn't
So-
want to, well, I'm not going to do anything about this, but
Mhm.
if it were me, I wouldn't want to get too, like it has to be in the lower right-hand corner. I wouldn't want to do that because then that also impinges on whatever design could be made. It's still
Right.
going to affect that. It's still going to need to be somewhere on there, but at least providing some flexibility on where it is on there gives libraries that want options more options. I mean, being part of Evergreen, Indiana is a part of the library's identity, so it's not inappropriate to have it on the front.
You guys
Yeah.
ever have a bank card that was part of a credit union and you could only use some ATMs depending on what group your bank was with? Remember that? I don't think that's true anymore, but you'd have like a little star on the back.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So, I mean, but if you guys want to standardize it to a certain spot, I agree with Ruth that I think that limits some of the creativity, but I also don't want to stress out frontline staff. I think if it's those agreed sizes, those agreed colors, I don't see a problem eyeballing that. If it's in the left corner versus the right corner, it's a small card.
I mean, yeah, I see it as a long-term branding issue that if part of our brand is Evergreen, we want our patrons to understand how that works, that I think that helps them. For frontline staff, they scan the card, it either comes up in the ILS or it doesn't.
But the
There's
thing
also
is
that.
too, though, in some cases, if you were to go in with a card that didn't look like a thing to a library, some frontline staff wouldn't even bother to scan it because
Absolutely.
they would say well, that's not going to work here, so I'm not even going to bother. So there would have to be that clue that said, this is appropriate, I will do this.
Yeah, I agree completely with the branding. As I said, especially just long term, because this is the first library it's asked for this, and I think others will.
This is the first one that has escalated it to a point.
Okay.
Definitely not the first one who has asked for it.
So is this like a deal breaker for them?
I don't think there is a deal breaker for them, but it is a big deal. I mean, that's a large line item for them or for us. And traditionally, it has been for us to pay for those initial cards. So it would essentially be us paying $13,000 for something they don't want.
I understand that. I just kind of feel bad for the small libraries who wanted this a long time ago and we said no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an evolution though of the.
But where does it end? I just
doesn't.
feel like the branding has to be strong, and that's just my opinion. I mean, I know we all love our individual libraries, but we joined a consortium, so I don't know. I have very mixed feelings about this, but I trust that a good decision will be made.
I agree with the branding for Evergreen. We want to have a good product that we're promoting to the rest of the state with Evergreen. But we also have the brand of our own libraries that we're constantly trying to promote. We're a consortium. We're not one library. So that's where we have that tension.
Right.
I'm excited by the possibility. Whatever we can do, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern would be locking us into any kind of decision we regret down the line.
I don't think
I
that
agree.
any of us would be able to 100% say that there's any decision we've ever made in any aspect of life where we had a guarantee we wouldn't regret it somewhere down the line.
Right, you just don't want to invite it.
Mhm.
I think the only downside I can see would be if we have frontline staff who are confused and frustrated and we have bad customer service experiences. And so if we can avoid that, if we can, design this in a way and maybe request that designs be approved, have some oversight involved so that people aren't just taking what we're saying or what we've written and interpreting it their own way. And then we have a million different cards that look all different. If we have some oversight in this, I think we can do it.
That would I like the idea of requesting that libraries submit their design to us to the executive committee ahead of time. I think that's probably a good way to make sure that we're not confusing our member libraries.
I kind of like that too. And I think maybe if we had a little oversight, I would withdraw my request for making the logo larger. I think Cheryl has a point about it would kind of impinge on your creative ability if you had this, 1-inch size circle on there. So I do think maybe we need to say it needs to be on the front or it needs to be on the back, one or the other. Just again, so frontline staff know where to look.
So
It's hard enough right now with frontline staff playing find the barcode sometimes.
Yeah, in the books.
I just think it would
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if we can say it has to be clearly on the front of the card and that the executive committee has to approve designs. It could even be something that we can do via email or something like that, so people aren't held up and having to wait 2 months till the next executive committee. But I kind of like both of those ideas.
The only thing that I would add to the discussion about whether to have a logo on the front or back is that you could probably get the logo on the back of the wallet size card. Okay, it would be real difficult to get a logo large enough on the back of a keychain fob.
And also it would increase the price of those cards as well if you put it on the back, because it's going to be multiple colors. So that would also impinge on that creativity because so I would say that it necessarily has to be on the front.
That's what I would say. I would say we need to make sure that it was on the front, so that would save everybody monies.
Right. And how many people are going to spend that extra dollar anyway for it to be on the back? So I don't think it hurts anybody to say front of the
Okay.
So I can update this based on the conversation here, and then Keith can make that available, this draft.
Do we need a motion on this to proceed? Or are we just going to have Keith redo the draft and revisit it, or what?
I will say that we'll definitely need something in place or something to tell Porter County in advance of their go live date.
Okay.
Otherwise, they're not going to have any library cards and no stickers.
Okay. All right. In that case, actually it says 0.5-inch diameter on the front of the library card design. It says that in the draft already. So if everyone's okay with that, maybe we could have a motion to accept the draft. Are we okay with the design of the graphical elements? Any comments on those? Have everyone been able to see them?
I'm okay.
I thought Janet said she didn't get the message, so.
One's green, one's blue, and at least here they all know that they look for green or blue.
Yeah.
Right. No, I didn't get this document, but I can see the pictures. So yeah.
Okay, great.
It reminds me of
So does someone?
the Visa thing on front of your, or whatever in front of your card. You can tell it's a Visa or a Discover or whatever, tiny little, because we know
Yeah.
the logo.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
think,
does someone want to make a motion to accept the draft proposal for the Evergreen library card standards?
I'll motion.
That was from Scott. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Who was that?
That
Cheryl?
was Cheryl.
Okay.
Before you vote, just to stipulate that there will be some addition to this regarding the executive committee approval of designs.
Okay. Yes.
So the vote would be to accept it with the stipulation that there will be wording to reflect the EC's oversight of any custom designs approval, however you want that worded.
Is that okay with you, Scott, since you made the motion?
He's nodding his head.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, sorry. I was gonna agree with that. Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second to approve the draft of the what are we calling this thing again? The Evergreen, Indiana Library Card Standards as presented, and adding some wording about executive committee approval of designs. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Me.
sounds like we got, who was me? Ruth?
I think it was Jennifer. No, I don't
It was
vote.
Jennifer. I was
Okay.
late, sorry.
I don't vote, but Jennifer is opposed.
All right. I do think that motion carried though. So we're on to the next thing. And I've lost my agenda again. Okay, analytics database vendor choices for upcoming renewal. Keith, do you want to take this or you want me to talk about it?
Actually, if you would like to talk about it, by all means, because you were,
Okay.
yeah, you were.
So this was something that the e-content committee, this was something the e-content committee discussed earlier today. We've had proposals from Reference Solutions and A to Z databases for the consortium for the upcoming year. A to Z databases came in with a really low offer of $36,000, almost $37,000 a year. That does include Porter County once they're on board. Keith went back to Reference Solutions to see if they could match that. And they basically said, we can't cut ourselves off at our own knees. But they did agree to basically hold our price the same for this year and include Porter County. So the Reference Solutions is $48,363 for the year. There was some fairly lively discussion about A to Z versus Reference Solutions, formerly known as Reference USA, in the e-content committee. Reference Solutions has successfully sued A to Z database and their founder for copyright infringement. I know there's a $22 million settlement hanging over them. Some of the news releases basically talk about how Reference Solution is probably just going to end up absorbing A to Z databases in sometime in the future. So that was one thing we considered, just that pending legal action. We also consider just kind of the quality of Reference Solutions versus A to Z. Some people expressed some concerns about A to Z's support and also just the overall quality of their data and how well they maintain it. And then the third thing was just kind of the overall feeling that A to Z is kind of the shady guy selling databases on the street corner. Where you've got Reference Solutions as this quality product that's been around for a long time. So the recommendation from the e-content committee was to continue with Reference Solutions, even though it is more expensive, just because we were concerned if A to Z databases would still be here a few months from now, and just the idea of supporting a company who basically is not very ethical. Did I miss anything there, Keith?
No, that's a very succinct explanation of it. It is a matter of, do you want to take the, and when A to Z databases first approached us, My first instinct that something was wrong was they basically said, well, how much you paying now?
Mhm.
And they said, yeah, we'll give you 30% off.
Mhm.
And even before I told them how much we were paying, they're like, well, we'll just give you deep discounts. So it definitely it feels like a sense of desperation. And from a coordinator standpoint, one of my concerns is, if we were to move to A to Z databases, we would switch gears. We'd have to change, libraries have to change all their links. They have to change all of their, any literature or pamphlets they've got to point patrons towards A to Z databases instead. And then if A to Z databases ends up becoming insolvent or gets absorbed by reference solutions, then we have to point them right back to reference solutions. And that trying to minimize whiplash is something that I had concerns about.
Any questions about that or any more discussion? So like I said, basically the recommendation of the e-content committee was to stay with reference solutions for this year. And we did have budgeted, I believe, $50,000, Keith, if I remember seeing that.
That's correct.
So we are coming in under our budgeted amount, at least for this year with reference solutions.
I'll make a motion that we accept that reference solutions for another year.
Okay, so Janet from Shelby County, moving to stay with reference solutions. Do we have a second?
Yes, I'll second. Nick from Garrett.
Nick from Garrett, second. Any other questions or discussions? All right, if there are no other questions or discussion, call a vote. So all in favor of staying with reference solutions for $48,363 a year, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Any opposed? All right, motion carried. We're sticking with reference solutions.
Thank
Okay,
you, everyone. All
last
right.
thing we have is the next meeting.
All right. Next meeting.
Announcements.
Currently scheduled for April 12th, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central. It's as is all things in this world, we're still up in the air whether or not it's going to be in person or via Zoom here. Did we want to talk about the setting a date for the annual meeting?
We might as well, since we're talking meetings.
Oh.
Is this something we'll be doing virtually again, or?
Yes.
Okay, and about how long does it take?
Generally an hour.
Hour.
Okay,
An hour to an hour and a half.
mhm. And are we looking at sometime in May? Is that our target date, or
It has been March traditionally.
March? Okay,
That's when the slate of officers is announced, and then May is the voting happens. And
Okay.
then the new officers are announced in May.
gotcha. So we normally do it in March. We present the slate of officers. Is this a time for them to make statements, or do we just present them and people can ask questions?
Just present them.
Okay,
I mean,
All right.
if they want to actually be present and talk, I guess that could be a thing, but
doesn't have to be.
Traditionally, yeah. I
all
will say
right.
that just bear in mind that Porter County migration is the 22nd of
I
March.
was looking at that.
So,
Yeah.
that's the
So we probably don't want to do it that week, huh? Or even the week before, I bet.
no, the 29th would be amazing.
You go for it. I won't be here.
Oh,
I'm out of the country from the 29th to April 8th. So
or the 24th.
will that be enough time for you to recover after Porter County?
Absolutely not. It doesn't matter.
It's never stopped us before.
Exactly. I mean, it's fine with me. It's fine with me if you want to do on the 29th. You're just gonna have to do without me. That's okay. We have a vice president, don't we? Or a chair elect?
Yes, you most surely do.
Certainly do, yeah.
I'm obsolete. You guys can do it.
None of what you're saying is true.
Mm.
Are there some other dates that others might propose?
It seems to be we need to have time, so it needs to be towards either that week that they migrate or for the 29th.
Mhm.
It seems like.
Keith, are you against the 24th?
Yes, but
Okay.
again, that has never
I
stopped
won't
us
be here the
before.
24th either. I'm the secretary, so I'm unavailable the 24th.
Oh, that definitely needs to be the 29th then.
Yeah, I'm going to be on. A lot of people have spring
yeah.
break that week, so I don't know if that's a good choice or not.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Is the 28th, is there something going on the 28th? That
It's Monday.
it's a Monday? Okay.
It's my board meeting, but it's not till 6 o'clock. So if you want to do it the 28th, I can actually be here. I don't leave until the 29th. So,
Yeah, let's do the 28th. She'll
Yes.
be
okay.
here.
And Jennifer will be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be here.
There are certain officers,
Mhm.
but there are other officers you don't have a meeting without if you can avoid it.
Mhm. So this would be like sometime in the afternoon-ish, say,
I think that
like,
well, I don't know. We've done both. We've done it in the
Okay.
morning, but we've also done it like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
I would say
Yeah.
since it's a Monday, I would probably choose.
1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it is a annual membership meeting for all the Evergreen, Indiana member libraries, but it is also an executive committee meeting
mhm.
that's held that day. So,
Okay.
so we could keep with 1 p.m. still. Just
Sure. Let's do 1 p.m. That.
Okay.
1 p.m. on Monday, March 28th.
And just as a reminder, the only new business that happens on that day for that executive is the acceptance of the slate of officers.
Okay.
It's not like all of the subcommittee reports, but it is a very expanded Indiana State Library report in terms of the state of Evergreen, Indiana.
Okay. All right. Do we need to vote on that or anything, or are we good just setting it? Does it require a motion?
I think
Jennifer,
it does.
Jennifer, do you think it does?
It does.
Okay. So does somebody want to make a motion about Monday, March 28th at 1 p.m. for the Evergreen, Indiana annual meeting?
This is Jennifer. So moved.
Okay, thank you. How about a second?
I'll second. This is Sonia.
Thank you, Sonia. Any other comments or questions? Okay, not hearing any. I will call for a vote. All those in favor of having the Evergreen, Indiana annual meeting on Monday, March 28th at 1 p.m., please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, sounds like we got an annual meeting scheduled. Oh God, that's our annual due. Oh no, it is.
so
Good
if that's the
times.
case, if that's the case, then does that mean that since the next executive meeting would be on April the 12th, that we have the annual meeting in place of the April 12th executive committee meeting?
No.
Or we still have the executive committee meeting on April 12th as normal?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay. Very good.
2 different
Two
meetings.
meetings. We had one
Yes.
meeting, yes.
Mhm.
What about the second meetings? Okay.
It's not like second breakfast.
Unfortunately.
Bring snacks.
There's the pity.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. All right, I think that's everything then. The next meeting, April 12th at 1 p.m. I've lost my agenda again, but I think that's the last thing on it. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Janet.
Hello. Janet's motion to adjourn, a second.
It's
You
Jennifer.
speak up.
Jennifer
All
says,
right.
yeah.
Thank you. All right, non-debatable motion. The meeting is adjourned. We're out.